Right, let's continue with our next session before lunch. We are talking future-proofing infrastructure for a greener tomorrow. Our guest is Ben Stone, Group Head of Environmental Sustainability at Kier Group. A warm welcome for Ben, please.
Thanks. Afternoon, everybody. So, as you just heard, I'm Group Head of Environment for Kier, and I'm going to talk to you about future-proofing infrastructure. The way I'm going to do this is talk about a lot of Kier projects as we go through. So you'll see lots of pictures. There's only two that aren't from any of our projects throughout the whole presentation. So first one here, Tide Bank side in London. This is a net zero operational and embodied carbon built office building in London that we've just finished building. So really nice project there. I'm going to be quick though because I've got a lot of content. What I need to do before I go on though and talk about the real content of this is just explain who Kier are. So most of you have probably never heard of Kier, or if you have, you don't really know what we do. The best way to describe us is that we build and maintain every type of infrastructure or building you can imagine, and you've probably touched some piece of infrastructure on your way here or today already in terms of that Kier has built or maintained. So we maintain roads, we build water treatment works, we look after utilities, we work for the Canal and River Trust and build reservoirs and look after the network, we build schools and hospitals, and we look after homes. So all right across the UK. But the more interesting bit for me is around sustainability. So our purpose is to sustainably deliver infrastructure that's vital to the UK. And we have 400 live projects across the UK, £4 billion of revenue and 10,000 people working for us. 70% just about of that revenue comes from projects that are a net environmental benefit. So really helping to address the climate crisis, the nature crisis, doing more with resources. And we've cut our carbon emissions by 70% since 2019. So we're well on the way to becoming a net zero business by 2039. We just heard about TNFD a minute ago. We have adopted TNFD. Our first climate and nature report will come out in October this year, so in about a month's time. And that'll talk about all of our climate and nature risks, opportunities, dependencies and impacts. But it's not just the environment bit that we care about. So 12% of our employees are in a formal earn or learn position. And we spend £1.4 billion with small businesses around the country each year. So as we move around the country and do different projects, we invest in that local community and leave a legacy there. Project here that I wanted to mention is Jodrell Bank Visitor Centre. So Jodrell Bank is a radio telescope outside Manchester, UNESCO World Heritage Site. We built that visitor centre in the same shape as the radio telescope. So it's the same diameter and it's the same shape. It's the largest reinforced concrete dome in Europe. And the reason I think that is future-proofed is because that is a building that is going to be there for centuries to come. So it's in keeping with that site, and it's going to last for a long time. So it might not have the low-carbon aspects that we would look for, but it does have longevity, and we're not going to have to retrofit it or change it. Okay, dreaded bit for everybody, audience participation. I'm going to ask you some questions and get you to show your hands, and we'll see if I can see anybody past the lights. So my first question is around solar PV, but before I do that, I want to mention another project from Kier. So this is the Bridgewater Tidal Barrier. We're in the middle of building a tidal barrier for the Environment Agency, and that will protect 11,000 homes and 1,500 businesses around Bridgewater. So as sea levels rise, we're having to build this infrastructure to adapt our communities to our changing climate. The picture of the solar PV panels on there, though, at the moment, with the Environment Agency, our client, we're trialling a hydrogen generator with solar PV panels on that job. During the summer, we don't have to use any other power. So it's quite a long way from the national grid, so there's no mains electricity to that site. So it would normally run on a diesel generator. We've replaced that with green hydrogen and solar PV. Over the summer so far, no hydrogen use. As we get into winter, probably some hydrogen use, but to be determined. So my question on solar PV. Would you put your hand up if you think that solar PV, photovoltaics, are a technology that will help to future-proof our infrastructure? So yeah, most people, yeah. Okay, so solar PV, yes. Every panel absorbs 600 kilograms of CO2 each year. So, and it pays back the embodied carbon in that technology within 4 years. So it's really good in terms of carbon. Problem with solar PV is that 80% of them are made in China, and 50% of the polysilicate wafers, which are the shiny surface you can see on a solar panel, come from the Uyghur region of China. So there's massive forced labour risks associated with solar PV and installing. And if you don't manage those risks, is it really going to give us a greener future? Is it going to future-proof our infrastructure, or is it just dealing with a little part of the agenda? So at Kier, we've just implemented the following standards. So this is staged so that we don't ask too much from our supply chain. But from July 25, all of our permanent installed solar panels must be sourced from manufacturers that are part of the Solar Stewardship Initiative. Same time next year, we'll ask that all of the manufacturing facilities have been audited against the traceability standard. And then from 2027, we'll also do it for stuff like on the screen here, where it's temporary installations. But we're doing it in that phased approach because we work with a lot of SMEs, a lot of small businesses around the country that install these for us, and we don't want to overload them. So we're giving them time to move with us along that journey and implement those standards. Second question. Okay, so this is a choice. And these are the only two pictures that aren't from a Kier project. So I would like you to tell me which of these you think is better for nature. So if you think picture 1 is better for nature, put your hand up. We've got lots of environmentalists in the room, I can tell. And if you think picture 2 is better for nature, put your hand up. Nobody, because I just gave it away. You're right. So picture 1 is great. So nature doesn't care if it's messy. Nature cares about being left alone. So picture 2, that's an arable field. That's ploughed twice a year. That's a green desert. So it might look beautiful. You might think it looks great. But in terms of nature, they don't care if it looks nice. They just want to be left alone and left for nature to come in and build a nice habitat. So our challenge with development, we talk a lot about regenerating brownfield sites, but they often have a high biodiversity baseline that we have to compensate for. They often are contaminated. So if it's an old factory like you can see there, you have to remediate that site. You have to clean up the soils. So that's an additional cost. But they do often bring higher social value because they're often in urban areas. They're often in deprived communities where you can invest, and they help to take away a potential source of antisocial behaviour from kids going on and drinking on them. The bottom one, higher land value, because it's easy to build on, in all honesty. You lose food production if you build on it, but there's no demolition, no remediation costs, and you do have no or negative social value potentially because you're building out in the countryside, so there's no services there to support those homes or businesses or people. So it's a real challenge. We want to build on these brownfield sites, but we do risk losing some of the really best sites for nature around our country, and sometimes little islands of biodiversity in city environments. Third one, I want to talk about climate adaptation. So another project there that you can see the moors Arn that we are in the middle of building. The bit that I want to talk about is coastal squeeze. So we have a thing called intertidal habitat, which you can see up the top there. Intertidal habitat is the bit that gets uncovered when the tide goes out. So covered by the sea when it comes in, uncovered when it goes out. As the sea levels rise, we build our sea defences higher and higher to protect our communities. But because they're in the same place, that squeezes that intertidal habitat, and it means we're losing it at a rate of 45 hectares a year around the UK. So if I just click on one, hopefully this is going to work. This is Poole Harbour, and you'll see the difference between 2018 and 2118. So Poole, everybody in Poole is going to have a sea view if we do nothing. If we do build up those seawalls, though, we lose all of that intertidal habitat. So the project we're building at the moment is the moors at Arn there, and that's, is it going to click on? Yep. 150 hectares of salt marsh intertidal habitat. Now, salt marsh is great for nature, great for biodiversity, but it's also great for carbon sequestration. So it absorbs nearly 4 times as much carbon as woodland, and it provides an area for the community to engage with nature from Poole. So really nice project which is compensating for the harm that we're doing to nature around the country. Okay. So, talked all about those. The reason I wanted to talk about those is that before you came here, you probably thought, well, if we're going to future-proof infrastructure, it means we're going to address net zero. I spoke about something like this last week, and we did a word cloud at the start of the presentation. And net zero and low carbon were the biggest words in the middle, because they're the thing that everybody talks about. And they are really important, but they're not the only thing that we need to future-proof against. So we have all of these issues up the top that you can see there. We've got resource shortages, stranded assets, climate emergency, and nature emergency. And the way that we deal with those is by building nature-rich places, retrofitting the infrastructure that we've already got, thinking about placemaking. So like Jodrell Bank, how do we build places that are going to last the test of time and are going to be there for centuries to come, and that our future generations are going to enjoy? And how do we adapt to our changing climate? So, the rest of the presentation, if it's going to click on. The bit I forgot. The bits that are really important here is that it does cost money to innovate. So like at the Bridgewater tidal barrier where I showed you that solar and hydrogen generator trial, that costs a lot of money because we've never done it before. It's much cheaper just to put a diesel generator on, because it's a proven technology, we know how it works, we can just drop it in and it'll work. Bringing innovation in costs money and it takes time to get it right. So we have to collaborate with people like the Environment Agency and like our clients and our supply chains to be able to actually deliver those cost effectively and make sure that they're going to be future-proofed. So, a few examples, one for each of these 5 that I'll just run through quickly. The first one I wanted to talk about is Mansfield Suds. So this is a sustainable drainage solution. So on the left-hand side, you can see a traditional drainage solution. On the right-hand side, you can see a nature-based sustainable drainage solution. So right-hand side, lovely flower beds, wildflowers, and that drainage pond there holds the water back. So as it rains heavily and extreme weather events, if we look at last year, we had extreme weather events non-stop. Water goes into the nature-based solution, is held back there and doesn't overwhelm our sewer systems. On the left-hand side, what you can see is that it's filling up straight away, going to flood the local community, and then that extreme weather event is why we pollute our rivers as well. So all of that water going straight down that drain into a sewage treatment works and then going out into a river because we can't cope with it. And part of the challenge with this is that we have in a lot of towns and communities, we have a combined sewer system. So up until the 1960s, we had one sewer system. All of your sewage from your homes and all of the rainwater went into one system, all combined, go straight down. And when we had more green space and we had less homes and less hard standing, that was all right. We could cope with it, and our sewage treatment works can cope with it. Now, we struggle with that because we've paved over everything, because we have extreme weather events associated with climate change, and we've got much more housing and buildings and people using water across the country. So we could just upgrade sewage treatment works, or we can build something like we have done in Mansfield for Severn Trent Water. So this is really innovative, received funding from the government to support it because it's a different way of working. Doesn't cost more money than upgrading a sewage treatment work, but deals with it further upstream. So you're capturing that excess water and preventing it from overloading the sewage treatment works. Biggest challenge on this project was that it's quite disruptive for communities. So you've really got to engage the communities early and get them on side, otherwise they'll just block anything from happening. So you can see on these pictures, we blocked access to people's homes to put these in. But we put these really nice nature-led features in. We took out green desert areas on the verges. As you go into any housing estate, you see a bit of grass. It doesn't bring any value to nature, doesn't bring any value to anybody who's walking past it. Nobody sits on it, nobody uses it. It's just there. So we replaced them with features like this. So you can see the rainwater comes in through the curb, into that, and then is held back, and it's released slowly into the sewage system or into the ground. They will last 30 years without any maintenance. They bring biodiversity benefits, but they're also great for people in Mansfield to see. So if you lived outside this, that's a bit better than just having a bit of grass outside your home, isn't it? So a really nice project that doesn't increase costs, creates nature benefit for the community and for nature, and adapts our country to climate change. Notable mention, closer to where we are now, so Joe Strummer Subway, derelict subway on the other side of London. We turned it into the largest sustainable drainage feature in London. So effectively filled it so that the water runs in there, doesn't flood people's properties or overload the sewers, but does capture it in a nature-based way. Okay, net zero, another big challenge for us in terms of future-proofing. Didn't want to talk about a building on this one, so I'm talking about Wigan to Bolton electrification. We've electrified 6.5 miles, and that doesn't sound like a lot of railway between Wigan and Bolton. The key for that is, though, that it unlocks the rest of the network in the northwest. So if you have a little bit of railway, which is diesel, you can't run electric trains on the surrounding network because they can't get through. So we've connected up either side of Wigan and Bolton as well by electrifying that railway. One of the big challenges there, though, is that it's also retrofitting. So it's an existing network that we needed to bring electrical infrastructure to, and the biggest challenge there was bridges. So in some bridges, we had to dig out to create the headspace so that you could get the electrical cables underneath. And this bridge is a Grade 2 listed bridge. And we winched that up from either side and then built up the access points onto the bridge so you could get across. So there's some really interesting engineering that goes on to future-proof some of these solutions. Placemaking. Nobody thinks of a prison as placemaking. You know, why would a prison in Glasgow be an example of placemaking? But we're replacing Scotland's largest prison, which is 143 years old. Poor outcomes from that prison, so we're working with the government up there to build a new prison, which will help to rehabilitate the people that are in there. It's on a brownfield site, so it's a former gasworks, and there were some beautiful greater spotted orchids on that site, but we can't remove them and translocate them because they're contaminated from the ground. So terribly contaminated site being brought back into use. Like I said earlier, we spend a lot of money with SMEs and in local communities, so we're spending 50% of all the spend in the local community there to reinvest and get people jobs in that local community as well. And it will be the UK's first net zero in operation prison. So really great example. The biggest bit here and the biggest bit here for net zero, I would say, is our focus on precast components. So big concrete pieces, we bring them to site instead of casting them on site, reduces waste, makes the construction quicker, makes it more consistent in terms of delivery, makes it safer for our people on the site, and it prevents pollution risks. But the reason this is a good example of placemaking, so in that community, the front of house area for that prison will be accessible by the community as well. So the prisoners can grow food, which will then be sold in the cafe, but the cafe will become a restaurant in the evening for the community, and there's a theatre space. So the community will be able to use the front of house on that prison to actually get some value out of it as well in their community. So you're getting rid of this brownfield site, this is antisocial behaviour risk, but you're also building something that supports rehabilitation of prisoners and helps the local community to get a new space. Final one. I don't know if I'm going to have to click again to make this play or not. Let's try. Yeah, so Toddbrook Reservoir. Toddbrook Reservoir sits just outside Manchester, over the top of a town called Whaley Bridge. In 2019, the spillway here, that you can just see, that was built in the 1960s, breached. So August 2019, extreme weather event associated with climate change, overtopped, and the spillway started to crumble. So Whaley Bridge was evacuated. The army dropped 400 tons of sand onto that spillway. We're now rebuilding the dam and the spillway that runs down the outside, and we've designed it for a 1 in 10,000 year flood event. So it's never going to breach again. We've put 500 piles into that spillway that you can see running down here, so that it's never going to move, water's never going to impact it, and that down on the side of the dam there, that will become a community space. So it will become a park. And the towers that you can see at either end of the spillway, they'll be accessible to the public, so they'll be able to go up on those, it will be covered in community art, and it will create something good out of the fact that we had to evacuate a town because of a breach in that reservoir. Let's click on, oh, there is one more. Cornwall Street. So 19 Cornwall Street, we bought this office block in the centre of Birmingham in 2019, and we're just finishing refurbishing it now. So really great example of retrofitting infrastructure for a greener tomorrow. It's net zero in operation. We've improved it from EPC-E to EPC-A, so down to 4.1 kilograms per CO2 per metre squared, and then offsetting the remainder. It's got every badge that you can see there. And it's significantly reduced the embodied carbon because we've taken an existing 1990s building, which was really poor in terms of energy efficiency, and brought it into Class A energy efficiency and Class A office space for tenants. The big part here, which is really important, is that we're starting to get to a position where offices can become stranded assets. So if you own an office and it's EPC-A and the government brings forward its proposed requirements to be EPC-B or higher, you can't let that office anymore. So we've refurbished a very inefficient old building to create something which is going to be future-proofed for the next decades to come. And that's the roof with 4,000 square foot of solar panels on the top. Okay. I am nearly done, you'll be glad to hear. So in terms of green revenue I talked about a little while ago, you can see that we're on the journey at Kier. This is a Red Admiral, by the way, that I took a photo of on one of our projects, Common Butterfly. We have increased year on year in terms of our revenue percentages. So from FY21 at 30%, we're now up to 69, and we're going to increase again this year when we report. So we really are on this journey. We're working with our clients and trying to go forward and create this greener infrastructure for tomorrow. So my final question, some of you will know this quote. This is from the Brundtland Commission in 1987, and this is the first sort of widely accepted definition of sustainable development. So development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. So I'd like to ask a question. How many of you think that we can still deliver on that quote in today's context? Put your hand up if you think you can. Oh, not many. Disappointing, isn't it? I think we can, and I think that my suggestion for how we would do that from a Kier perspective is that we need to develop a built environment that's resilient, restorative, and capable of sustaining future generations. So we've got a long way to go, but we are getting there. And the way we do it is by collaborating and working together more effectively. And that is me done. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ben. I always say to our speakers before they come to an event like this, bring examples. Bring examples. Wow, you took that notes on board. Thank you very much indeed. I know I've got plenty of questions I'd like to ask you, but are there any questions from the room? We have one here, we have one in the middle, so we've got two immediately. If we keep these relatively punchy, because these are the questions keeping everyone from their lunch. So thank you.
Hi, thank you so much. And definitely the examples are super helpful for us to understand. I'm Gunjan. I'm part of Centrica's innovation incubator, Energized Futures. And I'm thinking, what are some problems or challenges that you're still trying to solve? Because we saw a lot of successes here. And maybe there is where we can see if we can help you or collaborate and explore.
Yeah, okay. So I suppose you're right, we're not all the way there. Big challenges for us at the moment. I suppose if we were just to take carbon as an example, I've been talking about this morning with our board. We use a lot of diesel. We're trying to move towards hydrogen. We're trying to move towards solar technologies. We're trying to do that in a sustainable way. We're thinking about what battery supply chains look like and how do we do the same thing on batteries that we've done with solar? How do we make sure we're managing modern slavery risks in those supply chains? So our own emissions, that's a big challenge for us. Our supply chain, it's about data. So we have this sort of balancing act between social value into communities and getting data and implementing sort of low carbon solutions. We want to invest in those local communities, so we work with lots of SMEs. 60% of our spend is with SMEs. We have 8,000 live suppliers across our supply chains. And that's great because it invests in those communities and it invests in the social value there. But small businesses don't understand carbon. They don't understand some of the technology that we need to implement. So we do a lot of work to try and bring them with us and collaborate with them. And that's the biggest challenge in terms of our supply chain, I'd suggest.
Thank you, Ben. There was another hand somewhere in the middle. There it was.
Thanks, and thank you for all the examples. It's great to see some tangible solutions. A specific question I have is, in the case of the sustainable drainage systems, I presume that they could generate a positive ROI. Do you know whether local governments are looking to deploy these types of solutions that you've been piloting?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, if you were to walk around Sheffield, there's, so I live in Sheffield, so I see them all the time, but there's a whole scheme called Grey to Green, which has taken sustainable drainage schemes right through the city centre and is creating those nature-led solutions. There are other cities, so you see them in London. There's the urban greening factor in London, which does help with that sort of aspect as well, where you have to create a certain amount of green space to make sure that you can actually build. And that's really focused on water and making sure that we do have that soak-away capacity as well. So yes, it's coming. It's not as far as it needs to be just yet, and there's some nervousness because it's not a proven solution all of the time. So, you know, if you're a water company like we worked with Severn Trent, they took a real step forward and a real jump to try and implement that and understand how it works. But if you upgrade a sewage treatment works as a water company, you know that's going to solve the problem. So there is a bit of risk associated with it as well.
Okay, and thank you very much for that question. We are right up on time. I can take one more. I believe that hand was up first. Bear with me a second. Again, if we can keep this punchy, I'd be very, very grateful.
Hi, the name's Deborah. My question is about capital carbon and whole life carbon. How is Kier Group looking at that in respect to past 2080, and how are you communicating with your clients on all life carbon in terms of like the optioneering delivering of the projects?
No, absolutely. So we have our own design house. So we've got 700 consultants. Some of those are carbon consultants, some of them are engineers. They help us with our sort of approach. So we have a carbon 360 solutions approach, which looks across the REBA stages and then helps to design out carbon as we go through. We're rolling that out into our other infrastructure divisions at the moment. But as we sort of have a collaborative procurement approach, so we work with our clients a lot over and over again. So we talk to them in advance, we talk about priorities and the options that we could bring forward to sort of inform the future and what's being bid for. If you want to talk to an expert, though, Ollie is there. He's our climate manager, and you could have a chat with him and he'll tell you all about how it actually works.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. We are out of time, so thank you very much, Ben. Thank you, Ollie, for everything you're about to contribute, I'm sure, to several people in the room. Very, very quick announcement, a quick workshop announcement, the Carbon Intelligence and Circular Strategy Workshop with CarbMe. That's starting around now, maybe a minute ago. That's in room 2 opposite. Other than that, enjoy your lunch, and we'll be back in here with our next panel at just after 2 o'clock. But for now, our thanks to Ben Stone.